A fire that ripped through a series of townhomes in the Yorkville neighborhood is now being treated as suspicious. Good afternoon. You could see the inferno was intense. This blaze destroying at least 6 townhomes. And now police are investigating. CTV's Janice Golding is live at the scene this morning on Scalded Street to bring us the latest. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, police say that a fire that tore through a series of Century townhomes here in Yorkville was now being deemed suspicious. Now, you'll recall that the fire broke out at around 4:30 a.m. on Wednesday here on Scalded Street. Officials say at least 6 townhomes were destroyed in the blaze, which appeared to have begun in a home that was under construction. The flames then spread to 4 cars and a house across the street. Those cars will be towed today. The immediate area was evacuated and the road remained shut down while crews maintain a fire watch on 4 of the buildings. Now, Toronto Hydro is also working to remove and replace damaged lines. Many of the impacted homes had been converted into businesses, with fire officials saying the property damage could be in the tens of millions. Here's what people who live and work in the area have to say about what happened.
It was at 4 in the morning, I think. This is a really quiet street. I live in the neighborhood. It's very quiet here. Can't imagine what would have occurred, and it was construction, so there's nothing turned on. There's no ovens or anything like that, so I don't know. Just seems a little weird.
It was very scary, it was, to be honest. When I came, I saw like so many cars, the fires and everything. Was the whole street, like a Bay Street, was closed, and also like scholars.
It happens all the time, not usually in the city, but out developments out in suburbia. Just all of a sudden, they all burned down.
Lots of heavy heat damage, lots of broken windows. The hydro had been disconnected to those buildings, so we're just conducting a fire watch at this time until we no longer have to hold the scene.
Toronto Fire, the Ontario Fire Marshal's office, and Toronto Police are all conducting investigations. At this point, police say they do not have any possible suspect information. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. And we are following breaking news this afternoon. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is now saying President Donald Trump will likely suspend the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico for most products and services for a month, broadening an exemption that was granted to the auto sector yesterday, raising all kinds of questions on what has been a roller coaster few days. We'll have more still ahead.
An investigation is underway after a large fire overnight in downtown Bowmanville. The blaze broke out at a building that contains both stores and apartments on King Street near Scugog around midnight. The flames tore through the roof at one point. Affected units were evacuated. No injuries have been reported so far, but police say there are concerns one person may be unaccounted for.
There's somebody that there's reports that potentially somebody was in one of the units, but that is unconfirmed at this time. And due to the nature of the scene and fire being unable at this time to attend the unit, it's unconfirmed that person's whereabouts.
And officials are working to try to figure out what sparked the fire. And police are investigating after gunshots were fired in front of a tow yard last night.
It is the 3rd tow truck-related shooting in a 24-hour period. CTV's Allison Hurst continues her coverage and has these latest details. Allison.
Police have not said whether or not any of those incidents are linked, but yes, it has been a busy 24 hours for all those tow truck drivers. And we spoke with some drivers who tell us that they are now on edge at the idea, if their vehicle broke down, at the idea of having to call for help. For the 3rd time in just 24 hours, police responded to shots fired involving a tow truck shortly before 10 p.m., this time at a yard in Etobicoke.
You just worry a little bit, and you know, this kind of a thing is a bit of an escalation. You feel already vulnerable, don't know who's going to show up, and now to know that you might even be in danger or something, that's a little nerve-wracking.
No injuries were reported, but police did find evidence of gunfire at the yard just northwest of Sherway Gardens and say the suspect or suspects fled in a vehicle.
You just keep hearing constant stories about continuous violence and fire and any type of gun violence. Now it's almost fearful to ask for help or reach out for help.
Almost 24 hours before, Tuesday night at 10:20, this tow truck yard was behind police tape near Weston and St. Clair. 2 men went to hospital, a man in his 50s with life-threatening injuries and another in his 20s expected to survive.
I don't know what is going on between them, but no, I personally would be okay.
Then also Tuesday night around 11:20 p.m., a tow truck driver was shot while at this gas station near Lawrence and Warden.
He came out of nowhere, tried to attack him. When he was running, they shot him in the back. I think that happened.
The driver in his 20s was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
But there's so many gypsy tow trucks, and there's too much licensing been given out, so that's the problem. You know, there's just too many people. It's just like the Ubers and the taxis fighting amongst each other.
Police have not said if any of these incidents are linked. And we spoke with a tow truck driver earlier this morning who said that he is constantly afraid when he comes to work, worried when he's on the road, when he's parked somewhere, and that he regularly hides with his vehicle in the back of some parking lots to try and stay safe. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Back to you in studio.
All right, thanks, Allison. North of the city, police are searching for at least 3 suspects after a fire was set at a vehicle storage lot in Markham. Investigators shared this video from the lot near Heritage Road and McCowan. These images were captured at around 3 Monday morning. Suspects can be seen exiting a dark-colored car and appearing to pour an accelerant on several vehicles before setting them ablaze. Police say the flames went out on their own, but not before heavily damaging 13 vehicles in the lot. York Regional Police is asking anyone with information to get in touch. And take a look at this. OPP were on the scene of a transport truck rollover on the 404 this morning. It happened on the off-ramp from the northbound lanes to 16th Avenue. They put the word out at around 2:30 in the morning and closed the ramp for several hours for the removal. The driver was charged with careless driving. No injuries were reported.
A car jumped the curb and crashed into a storefront on the Queensway this morning.
One person was transported to hospital. CTV Sean Leathong is at the scene in Etobicoke with all the details. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, where I'm standing, you can see the area has been closed off behind me at Queensway and Loma. And there's a utility company, as you can hear them working, and they appear to be cutting through the sidewalks, trying to stop some sort of utility. Now, after the crash, we do know that there was a small smell of gas in the area. But I'll bring you back to what happened. It's about 10 o'clock this morning, according to witnesses. The area where I'm standing, the car had driven through going eastbound and appeared to crash into a storefront of an alterations boutique. The car itself was a black Audi A4. According to paramedics, they transported one person to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. I did speak to some people who were working in the area at the time, and the crash appeared to catch them by surprise, with nobody actually witnessing the crash itself, but just hearing what had happened, going outside and finding the person who was in front. Now, both police and fire had appeared on scene and have been here for some time. Now, Toronto police have left, but they are keeping the area blocked off at this time while the utility company is working. I can tell you that the power appears to be on in the area, but they continue to be working in the north part of the Queensway behind me. And again, I'll say one person has been taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. As beyond that, we don't know of any other injuries. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. I'll send it back to you inside.
Thank you, Sean. We turn now to a potentially major development in the fast-moving U.S. tariff story. America's Commerce Secretary said today he expects U.S. President Donald Trump to pause duties on Canada until April 2nd.
The president is going to decide this today, but he's talking about it. But I think it's likely that it will cover all USMCA compliant goods and services. So that which is part of President Trump's deal with Canada and Mexico are likely to get an exemption from these tariffs now. That this comes from that Canada has done an enormous amount. They've offered us an enormous amount of work on fentanyl, and so is Mexico.
And since that interview, President Trump has now declared Mexico will not be required to pay tariffs on anything that falls under the USMCA until April 2nd. The president is scheduled to sign some executive orders at 2 p.m., so we may hear more about the Canadian situation then. In Ottawa today, the Prime Minister said he is aware of these latest developments regarding the tariffs on Canada, but will wait to see what happens.
That aligns with some of the conversations that we have been having with administration officials, but I'm going to wait for an official agreement to talk about Canadian response or and look at the details of it. But it is a promising sign, but I will highlight that it means that the tariffs remain in place, and therefore our response will remain in place.
Yesterday, the Trump administration granted a 1-month reprieve to automotive products. The White House also might eliminate the 10% tariff on Canadian energy imports that comply with the USMCA, and is also reportedly considering exemptions for some Canadian agricultural goods. Trudeau said today Canada will be in a trade war for the foreseeable future, but says his government is having discussions about possibly delaying a second wave of Canadian retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. Meanwhile, Ontario's premier appeared on CNN this morning and was asked if the exemptions ease any of his concerns.
But what a mess President Trump has created here. The only thing certain on these 30 days is uncertainty. We've seen investments stall in the U.S. They've seen jobs are going to, people are going to lose their jobs, and inflation's happening. Everything's going to go up, and assembly lines will shut down if he continues. I have an idea. Let's just drop these tariffs. Let's sit down and renegotiate the USMCA deal that he created. It hasn't changed since he was in office, and he said it was the greatest deal ever. So let's move forward, and let's bring certainty back.
Premier Ford says Canada will help build the American economy, but the tariffs must be dropped. He reiterated he does not want to retaliate with duties, but has been given no choice. On Monday, Ontario imposed a 25%. On Monday, rather, Ontario was planning to impose a 25% duty on electricity that will affect 3 U.S. states. We'll get to more news in a moment, but first, let's take a live look at the city this afternoon. And is there a city there? Yeah, look at the conditions. The start, for the most part, to this day wasn't too bad, but as the temperature drops after days of mild temps, there definitely are concerns about what that could do to conditions. Jessica Smith is here. Jess, there's a winter weather travel advisory in effect.
And we're also looking at flash freeze warnings through parts of southern Ontario. It's a messy start to the day, and temperature-wise, what a swing. We were at 7 degrees for our high yesterday. We're looking at a daytime high, significantly cooler and below seasonal. And we're looking at those kind of lake effect flurries firing up thanks to a gusty westerly wind. So not necessarily a snowfall where you're going to see it stick to the ground, but it does impede visibility, so to speak. We're looking at a laundry list of washes and warnings as we make our way throughout this first half of our day. Keep in mind, if you're heading north of the GTA, that flash freeze warning, quite serious. Take your time as you head out on the roads. For us here in the GTA, we're still watching for that kind of shift to take place, but a lot of the major highways have really seen the brine put down, and we're not dealing with slippery conditions just yet, but things can change very quickly. Again, a really gusty westerly wind becoming northwesterly this afternoon. We're at -3. It feels like -11. It is a shock to the system. Yes, we're in meteorological spring, but it doesn't feel that way. Coming up, your full forecast right now. Back over to Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Upgrades are coming to help improve the maintenance of some of the city's streetcars.
Mayor Olivia Chow spoke this morning about the Hillcrest Complex construction project, but the discussion quickly turned to U.S. tariffs. CTV's Mike Walker is live with the update. Mike.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, the conversation started off about massive upgrades to the Hillcrest facility here, which includes $180 million in funding from the federal government and will allow more streetcars to be stored here. But then the conversation quickly turned to the ongoing trade war with the U.S. and the response to tariffs, with Mayor Olivia Chow announcing just a few moments ago that the city will award contracts valued at $353,000 or less exclusively to Canadian companies. This does not require council's support, as the mayor noted. Olivia Chow also pointing out that 10% of the city's contracts in its capital budgets are with U.S. companies. Here's more from the mayor.
On principle, we believe in buying local, because any contract that is under $353,000, there's no reason why we have to shop outside Canada. And we are barring any American companies from any Toronto contracts in the future.
As for other contracts of higher dollar value moving forward, the mayor also announced that she will be putting a motion before her executive committee as well as city council later this month that would bar U.S. companies from any future contracts with the city. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Back to you.
Thank you, Mike. The parent community at a school that serves students with special needs is fighting for funding.
They're concerned cutbacks could be coming to the classrooms their children rely on every day. CTV's Natalie Johnson has the story.
Good morning, Alexa.
13-year-old Alexa is attending school virtually today, included in the classroom conversation, even while using a ventilator.
Will you ring your bell?
Alexa was born with a rare neurodegenerative disorder, and when she was set to start kindergarten, her parents discovered Beverly School, a TDSB facility that serves the most vulnerable students in the system.
We just felt so welcome there, and it was just such an amazing feeling to know that she was in a school that had an elevator, that was accessible, just like the basic needs met. Everybody asked about you.
When she is well enough, Alexa attends the downtown school in person, joining friends like Felix in a specialized and supportive setting.
Schools like this are the only places that these kids can go to.
It's a little bit of a beautiful secret in Toronto. It's like finding a little world that maybe you didn't know was here in the community.
But as the country's biggest school board readies to balance its books, there is concern among parents that there could be staffing cuts to their beloved Beverly, jeopardizing its future.
Every 3 or 4 years, because the board has to cut its budget, they look to close congregated sites. And supposedly they talk about integrating them into the schools. Not possible.
That's the fear, is that schools like Beverly are going to be non-existent. And it's really scary.
The TDSB telling CTV News that it is still in the planning stages for next year and staffing discussions are ongoing. Quote, any potential changes will take into consideration the unique needs of the Beverly School community, specifically the needs of individual students, classroom structure, and the number of students to ensure we are maintaining the appropriate level of support and care.
Every year we go through this, and every year it feels like more of a challenge.
The parents of children requiring around-the-clock care now fighting for funding.
Having to deal with the school budget issues every year, it just seems like it's not fair, and we're kind of sick of it, and we're exhausted.
Desperate for their school support system to be spared. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie says she won't be asking any members of her caucus to step aside so she can try and win a seat at Queen's Park. It has now been 1 week since the provincial election, which saw the PCs and NDP return to their roles as government and official opposition. The Liberals climbed to 14 seats and regained official party status at Queen's Park, but Crombie was defeated in the riding by a PC candidate that was in Mississauga East Cooksville. Crombie confirmed Wednesday she won't push for a by-election in any of her party's seats. She said the right time will come for her to find a seat. She has said she'll continue to lead the party from outside the House for now.
We're turning now to the latest on those U.S. tariffs. The Prime Minister and Canada's premiers agreed during a meeting yesterday to reduce barriers to internal trade and labor mobility across the country. They released a statement last night that reads in part, First Ministers agreed that certified professionals with credentials in one jurisdiction should be able to work anywhere in Canada. Whether relocating for family reasons or pursuing job opportunities elsewhere, workers should be free to do what they are trained to do and contribute to the Canadian economy. Internal trade ministers and labor market ministers in each province have been directed to come up with a plan for countrywide credential recognition by June 1st. And CTV's Scott Hurst joins me now. Scott, it seems like this is just changing by the second, but tariffs seem to be uniting the provinces. Tell us more about this joint effort.
Nathan, with so much uncertainty about the trade war that was launched by the Trump administration and the threat that appears to be coming from our largest trading partner, Canada's premiers have joined together for a similar goal: increase our economic resilience, reduce our dependence on one specific trading partner, and strengthen our domestic economy. A first step is to make it easier for Canadians to do business with each other, more east-west trade versus north-south. And that means reducing trade barriers on goods and improve labor mobility, allowing workers to pick up and move provinces and not have the roadblock of having to retrain or recertify just because it's a different province, even though it may be the same job. Several ministers have also committed to allow direct-to-consumer alcohol sales, meaning booze can flow more freely between those select provinces. Bottom line, with the unpredictability it seems to be coming from our southern trading partner, Nathan, this allows businesses in Canada to access new revenue and open up new markets here at home.
And what are some of the big benefits of increased inter-provincial trade?
Well, according to a joint statement we got from Ottawa and the First Ministers and the Premiers, it basically says by reducing these barriers, it could add up to $200 billion to the Canadian economy. Now, of course, it's going to take a lot of work to get rid of these trade barriers. And North-South, North American trade isn't going anywhere. It's a huge market for our country, the largest, obviously, that our largest trading partner, $3.6 billion worth of goods and services going back and forth every day, and millions of jobs on the line. But premiers are saying now's the time to capitalize in the face of these tariff threats from our closest ally.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst, thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
All right, Jess.
Well, we may be into the spring season, but we're not done with the wintry weather just yet. A blast of cold air, really gusty winds making for some tricky travel as we head throughout the day. This afternoon, -2, feeling like -9. We should be at 3 degrees for this time of year, but that northwesterly wind adding a bite to the air. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll look ahead to your Friday and what you can expect for your weekend as we get ready to spring forward and step even further into the spring season. Those details after the break.
Well, as we wade through this trade war situation with the U.S. and all the uncertainty that it breeds, there are real concerns being expressed across many industries and sectors, and that includes charities and the food sector. Here to tell us more is the CEO of Second Harvest, Lori Nickel. Lori, thanks for being with us. For those who don't know, you're at the helm of Canada's largest food rescue organization that takes food that would otherwise go into landfills and then gets it to those in need. How is this tariff situation impacting your team and what they do?
Well, I think a lot in terms of just the uncertainty. So already we've seen financial businesses not donate to Second Harvest because of their uncertainty. So we're actually already seeing the effects of that, as well as the food supply chain. We know that much of the greenhouse is the food that we get from Canada. 85% is exported. And so with this trade war happening, what's happening to our small and mid-sized greenhouses? So even though in this exact moment, we're still getting the food, we're quite confident that if this goes on, that will be eliminated. As well as we don't actually know how much food is coming from America because we're rescuing it from different food businesses, and we're not sure what their inputs are necessarily, and retail. So the impact we're starting to see, but we're expecting to see a lot more, and it's not just Second Harvest. It is thousands of charities and nonprofits across this country that will be impacted, food charities and others, because there is so much uncertainty that financial donors are holding their money tight to ensure that they can support their employees, which is absolutely what they should be doing. But we are the last line of support, and we are going to get hurt. Many charities and nonprofits will close as a result of this, while more and more people need access to food supports and other supports.
That is certainly troubling, and it's probably worth noting that it hasn't been easy just because food right now is so expensive, and then you add this other layer.
Absolutely. We know that it's almost impossible for many families to purchase not just food, but healthy food, right? And that's who Second Harvest is. We're all about perishable protein, dairy, and produce, and it's out of reach for many of Canadians already. And this is just going to get it further out of reach. And, you know, one of the unintended consequences when we look at this trade war, one of the things that was outlined was appliances. Well, many charities are using old fridges and freezers, and as soon as those aren't working, it'll be impossible for them to replace it, which means healthy food again becomes further out of reach. It's not possible for them to even store it. So it's the supply chain challenges that we don't actually see the impact of yet, but we know it's coming. There's funding impacts that are here already. This, you know, we're at the beginning of something very scary for Canadians and for the charitable sector, because there will be less of us to support the need that is growing and growing. And it was already high to begin with.
And it truly is unclear. There's no telling what will happen today or in a week or in a month from now. Real quick, what can one do at this stage? Have you been in touch with various levels of government?
We are, and also we've been involved with many of our food partners, right? And we're kind of all, to your point, stuck in the same spot of, it's so uncertain. Help is like available when we know what we're dealing with, and that's the challenge. And so I think we're in for definitely a few bumpy months, but it could be much, much longer. So we all have to kind of shore up and prepare for the worst, because it may be the worst.
CEO of Second Harvest, Lori Nickel, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's talk about the weather forecast. A bit of a roller coaster, I guess, coming up. Things are going to be changing over the next few days.
It really is one of those things where we get into spring, and we have versions of spring in this country, right? Where it's really nice for a few days, and then winter says, psych, I'm not done with you just yet, and we get cold like this. When you have that temperature shift that is so dramatic and so drastic, you have the potential for flash freezing, and that's where we are right now. So we're kind of under a weather travel advisory currently, but we'll watch it very, very closely. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Now, it definitely still feels like winter outside today. We've seen some light blowing snow. This is a shot of the island. It is cold out there. The wind very much an issue today, creating that lake effect snow machine as we head throughout our day today. So layers are going to be crucial. We're sitting at -3 here in the city. It feels like -11 north of the city. Extremely cold, and we are holding on to this cold air throughout the day today and overnight. We're looking at this kind of lake effect snow machine thanks to some really gusty westerly becoming northwesterly winds, prompting a laundry list of watches and warnings. We have the flash freeze in the purple. Between the darker yellow, we have a blowing snow advisory along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. The GTA, for the most part, we're looking at this being the potential of a tricky drive as we head into the evening, thanks to the cooling temperatures and the potential of some freezing out there. The major highways likely okay, but we'll keep a close eye on that. It's some of those side streets that still have the snow that's kind of melted and then now frozen again. As we head into the afternoon, -2, we should be at 3 degrees on the positive side this time of year, and we'll feel like -9 as we head through a good portion of the day and right across southern Ontario. Thanks to that gusty northwesterly wind, it is fresh. As we head into this evening, -3, feeling like -9, so we're not too far off the seasonal mark for that overnight low, but it definitely feels cold right across southern Ontario with those double-digit wind chills in place for a lot of communities. Now, as we head throughout the day today, watching for that lake effect snow as we head throughout our afternoon into the early evening. For the GTA, not so much immeasurable snow, but it does cause a little bit of a reduction in visibility, so be careful as you head throughout the day. And we're not looking at much of a reprieve until we get into the day tomorrow. So a little bit of a clearing, at least from the cloud cover, as we head into the early part of our evening. So a dry, albeit cold commute. And again, we're watching for that flash freezing areas north of the city. Cottage country, you're included in that. As we head in towards our Friday morning, we get a little sunshine. It gets a little bit warmer and a little closer to seasonal as we wrap up the work and school week. So these kind of sharp drops in temperature, it's not lasting long, but it is quite impactful. As we head into our Friday evening, no issues when it comes to the commute, and we kick off our weekend with a little bit of sunshine out there. And don't forget, the clocks spring forward as we head in towards your Sunday. But right throughout the day on Saturday, it is quite nice out there if you can get out and enjoy it. So as we head throughout the day today, it is cool out there. It is windy. We don't really see a reprieve until the morning. There's still the chance of some flurries in the morning tomorrow, very early on, and then it clears out. And we're just dealing with some cloud cover off and on throughout the day, but a very seasonal daytime high. We head into your Saturday, your Sunday. We get ready for the clock change as we head in towards the weekend with a temperature pretty close to the seasonal mark, just above in a lot of places. And then spring says, oh, you thought I was gone for a little bit. Just kidding. We're up to 10 degrees as we head into your Monday and Tuesday with a whole lot of sunshine just in time for March break. So if you have outdoor plans, lots of activities here in the city and across the GTA, the forecast, very agreeable. We cool down just a little on Wednesday, but honestly not by much, and it does stay quite nice outside. So we just have to get through today before we kind of climb back out of it. Michelle, I'll send things back over to you.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
And coming up on CTV News at noon, the tariffs are causing some concern for the potential impact on health care. We'll dig into that after the break. March break is next week, and Pearson Airport is anticipated it's going to be busy.
However, a weak Canadian dollar and the ongoing trade war between Canada and the U.S. means fewer people are expected to travel south of the border this year. CTV's John Musselman is live with more details on this. John.
Well, Nathan, that's what we're hearing from some travel experts about that trend to the United States. This is considered getaway day here at Pearson Airport. We'll show you some video. A lot of passengers here at both terminals heading out for the March break. They're heading just about everywhere. The sun, the sand, the beach. Some people heading out to ski destinations. Now, the airport is saying that it's all systems go here, but they're reminding passengers to try to be organized with their carry-on luggage and their liquids and gels so that they don't have any delays. Make sure all their documents are in order as well. That'll speed up the process when they get to the airport. As for the weak loonie and this ongoing tariff situation, travel experts are saying, look, the weak loonie seems to be the bigger factor here. Our dollar is so weak right now, it has people reconsidering other destinations. Here's what the airport authority had to tell us just a short time ago.
We've looked at passenger numbers. We've looked at forecasting to make sure that when March break comes, that we are prepared to handle 140,000 people a day. I mean, it's a lot of people that come through this door. But like I said, we get ready for these. We plan for these events.
Now, as to this ongoing tariff situation, one travel expert said you may see more of an impact in the months ahead if this doesn't get resolved as people start looking for alternatives to travel to the States. Reporting live at Pearson, I'm John Musselman. Send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, John. The tariff situation is fluid and confusing, with many sectors thrust into a period of uncertainty.
And that includes healthcare. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan explores how manufacturers of medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and patients could be impacted on both sides of the border.
From monitoring newborns to hip replacements in seniors, Canadian medical devices are a vital part of healthcare in North America.
The U.S. is a major export market for medical device manufacturers here in Canada. And so we're concerned about them on that front, and American patients, of course, as well, who will be impacted.
But medical devices for diagnostics, medical imaging, PPE, and such are not on the list for U.S. tariffs right now, although some raw materials such as steel or certain plastics may be affected.
We've been lobbying the federal government and provincial governments to ask for exemptions for medical devices because we believe healthcare is too important.
The U.S. market represents more than $6.8 billion in sales for Canadian medical manufacturers, and MedTech Canada, representing about 120 Canadian companies, also fears retaliatory tariffs by Canada.
Nearly 40% of the imported medical devices that are used in our healthcare system come from the U.S.
What is currently on the U.S. tariff list is Canadian-made pharmaceuticals.
There's, many different products that are made across Canada that go to the U.S. and they cross everything from infectious disease products to blood pressure medications to, a lot of even just active pharmaceutical ingredients that they use to make other products. And so it's a pretty wide swath.
An estimated $6 billion worth of pharmaceuticals, but so far Canada is not expected to introduce tariffs of its own. Canada does have alternatives for getting medical devices, Europe and China, but Fournette says it's difficult to make a sudden switch in suppliers. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
As Ontario grapples with an ongoing measles outbreak, Niagara Region Public Health is reporting 3 new confirmed infections. Officials say the cases are all in children who had not been vaccinated. They're now trying to contact anyone who may have been exposed to the virus. That warning includes visitors to the Medcare clinics at 387 Scott Street in St. Catharines. Anyone who was there on Sunday between 4:20 and 6:20 p.m. is advised to watch for symptoms for up to 21 days. Health experts also advise residents to get up to date on their measles vaccinations.
The first trailer is out for a documentary offering a behind-the-scenes look at Neil Young on tour.
This will be the first time I've played in front of anybody in almost 4 years.
The film takes viewers along for Young's 2023 Coastal Tour, which saw him play a series of solo concerts along the U.S. West Coast. It also features a few tracks that producers say Young rarely performs live. It's scheduled to screen at select theaters April 17th. And speaking of Neil Young, we now know who will be joining him as headliners at the Glastonbury Music Festival this summer.
English band The 1975 will headline the festival's Friday lineup, while Olivia Rodrigo will claim top billing Sunday night. We've known for a few months now that Neil Young was preparing to be the headliner for Saturday. That same night, Charlie XCX will also take the stage. Several other big artists are planning to perform at the Southwest England Festival, June 25th to the 29th. Forget the rallies, the handshakes, and the debate stages. The real battle for the Liberal leadership race is unfolding online.
Social media has become a political battleground where engagement, sentiment, and even disinformation campaigns are shaping the race to replace Justin Trudeau. So who's winning the digital fight? Joining us now is AJ Cordero, who is one of the inaugural CTV News Satchadina Fellows. AJ, great to have you with us. Who is leading the charge online?
Well, that would be the same person in the polls. That would be Mark Carney. Mark Carney's social media posts have been the #1 when it comes to the observed platforms that we looked at. We looked at Facebook, Twitter, I guess X, and of course Instagram. And what we looked at and we found was that there was a lot of interest and engagement when it came to Mark Carney's posts, especially around the economy. He spoke very eloquently, obviously during the debates, but his posts on social media have been echoing a lot of the text keywords, for example, like economy, stability, reflecting his expertise in that space. And of course, there's not just him. In second place, we had also Christopher Freeland, who has been doing a great job in that world as well. Her words kind of focused on different things like, for example, fight, vote, and join, really complementing her warrior persona that she wants to bring to the table and able to take on in negotiations, bringing her experience that she has from a wealth of political experience in this world, where she was obviously chief negotiator when it came to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico agreement. And so we've seen a lot of different activity in that space, and we're really grateful to see that.
So Bayliss and Gould, they don't have the same recognition name-wise. How are they doing?
So Bayliss and Gould are bringing up the rear. I will start off with Gould. I mean, Gould is definitely somebody who's a skilled policymaker, really understands that world. And that's been reflected in the text that she's been posting on the different social media platforms. Bayliss has also had a message of inclusion and diversity in his messaging, but it has nowhere received the same traction that we had with the other people.
Now we got to talk about the U.S. trade war. I mean, we're in it. There's so much uncertainty, no doubt looming large over everything these candidates are doing. So how are they positioning themselves?
Well, I mean, U.S.-Canada relations have been at the center of this particular race, and it's very obvious when it comes to their political strategy as well. And so each candidate has taken on a specific role. In Mark Carney's case, it's been about talking about his financial expertise, being the former Bank of Canada governor as well as the Bank of England governor. When it came to Christopher Freeland, I previously mentioned the USMCA agreement. She's a hardline negotiator, so she wants to bring that energy, that intensity to the fight. For Karina Gould, like I mentioned as well, economic protector. She's talked about labor rights and those particular aspects as well. And for Frank Bayliss, he's kind of positioned himself as a fellow business person who can understand the corporate American psyche.
You know, we know the candidates, they want to have a big social media presence. Does that translate into votes?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, of course, Nathan, and I think that's really important to think about. But also, I think practically we know it when it comes to these kinds of situations. Endorsements, ground game, these are the things that make an election and make you win an election. I think it'll be very important that people pay attention to social media, and it gives us a good reflection of how to look at these situations. But I think also practically, digital strategy is imperative today in political society, and I think when we look at this, it's going to be super important to keep that in mind. And I think if you're not on the internet today, you're kind of irrelevant when it comes to political. So I think if you want to be a politician that's employed, you got to be on social media.
And hey, it's great to have you who's on it. What's it like? What's it been like for you digging through all of this? There's a lot to go through.
I mean, there has been a lot for sure. I mean, I've had my wonderful partner, Valerie Brunet, who's been very helpful in this regard. But I have to give a shout out to the Bell Media team here, specifically Omar Satchadina and the CTV News team, who've been excellent, wealth of resources and knowledge. And I've just been soaking up as much as possible over the last few days here.
All right. I was just going to say, thank you, AJ. Do you have another question?
No. I was just going to say, we've been soaking up what you're saying. Really appreciate it. Yeah, CTV News, Satchadina Fellow. Thanks for stopping in.
Well, cheers, Michelle and Nathan. Thank you so much for your time.
Take care. With weather news, uncertainty over the ongoing trade standoff is prompting another topsy-turvy day on the markets. The S&P TSX Composite Index dropped several hundred points to the start of the day before recovering and eventually gaining a bit and falling once again. Right now, it's down about 230 points. At the New York Stock Exchange, similar drops have been seen as markets react to the evolving tariffs picture across North America.
As tariffs dominate the news cycle, new figures show this country's trade surplus with the U.S. grew at the start of 2025. Statistics Canada says the merchandise trade surplus with the U.S. was $14.4 billion in January, up from $12.3 billion in December. Canadian auto exports and shipments of energy, consumer goods, and pharmaceuticals were also up. Analysts say the increase came as importers and exporters scrambled to avoid the impacts of U.S. tariffs. They were initially expected to start on President Trump's inauguration day, January 20th.
Canadian Tire launched a multi-year plan to restructure its retail operations. The Toronto-based company says it'll spend $2 billion during that time in an effort to increase value for both customers and shareholders. Canadian Tire says the changes will see its family of brands operate more closely together with shared systems and fewer redundancies. Canadian Tire also owns labels like Sports Check, Marks, and Party City. 17 Atmosphere bannered stores will close and others will be relocated under the plan.
The Ontario government spent $3 billion sending rebate checks to Ontarians, and most people received them before the provincial election.
Now the election has come and gone, and some taxpayers say they're still waiting for their checks, or they received them and they bounced. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
Just after the holiday season and right before a provincial election, the Ontario government said Ontarians 18 years or older who filed their taxes would get a rebate check of $200. Parents were to get it as well for each of their children to help buy food, gas, and pay the bills. The checks were sent out early in the new year, but some taxpayers say they have yet to receive them.
I've been waiting quite a long time patiently for this check.
Ken McPherson of Brampton wants his $200 check, and no one can tell him if it's on the way.
I don't know whether there's a glitch with the Ministry of Finance or what the problem is.
I was like, yeah, I got my payment. It's $200 is $200.
Kavita Ramsawoop of Toronto says she was excited to get her $200 check, but after she deposited it with her bank, days later she got a notice the item was returned unpaid, and she was charged a $7 service fee.
Everything was correct in the check. My name, my address, everything was correct. So why was it returned?
CTV News reached out to the Ministry of Finance, and a spokesperson said, as of February 25th, approximately 96% of checks have been issued, with approximately 12.8 million checks sent out to date. We are aware of an issue with a small number of checks not clearing due to technical errors. There have been cases of deceased people receiving checks or wrong names being used. According to the ministry, if you didn't get the $200 check or there is a problem with it, you should contact Service Ontario at 1-833-351-0409. McPherson says he feels like he doesn't exist and just wants to know if his check is in the mail.
All I want is somebody from the government to contact me and let me know we've looked into it. You can expect your check.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Coming up, a tough loss for the Leafs last night against the Golden Knights. A recap after the break.
Well, the Leafs were looking to get back in the win column last night when they faced off against the Golden Knights.
45 seconds to go in the power play. Matthews a shot, rebound, scores!
Vegas was up 5-0 in the second period when Austin Matthews finally got Toronto on the board. Mitch Marner would add another one for the Leafs late in the third, but that would be it, as close as they would come. Toronto went on to fall 5-2 for its second straight loss. The Leafs are off until Saturday when they take on the Colorado Avalanche.
A promising young athlete from London, Ontario has captured the attention of one of the biggest soccer teams in the world.
CTV's Brent Lail tells us the fancy footballer is only 11 years old.
I've been invited to a camp in Italy for AC Milan. I will be going there at March 8th.
From a tiny gymnasium at Wilfrid Jury Public School, 11-year-old Matthew Czakowski has been noticed by one of the richest clubs in the world.
One of 5 players who was invited to Italy, so he's very fortunate and a fantastic player.
One touch, immediately hit it right on the net, okay?
AELFC has contacts with professional agencies, and after seeing Matthew on tape, he got the invite.
From like 11, 12 years old, they take him and then they mold him into what they want to see. So, I mean, that speaks volumes for Canada. I mean, we've got the World Cup coming here next year, and I mean, look at the talent that we're bringing out from these agents here, and we're taking them to the mecca of soccer in Europe.
His footwork at 11 years old is phenomenal, and he's worked hard at it, spending hours every day.
I just do like rebounding and practicing my touch, doing my dribbling skills, maybe a little bit shooting.
He idolizes Cristiano Ronaldo and hopes to one day follow in his footsteps.
I hope I can get a contract to like go to a Major League Soccer team.
His teammate Jack Gagoulias is also on the verge of earning a tryout in England. Negotiations are ongoing with Millwall FC. Brent Lale, CTV News.
See that kid's dribbling skills?
He's got moves.
He is talented.
Ooh, remember the name. All right,
Yes.
let's get to some weather, and we are waiting for, you know,
Yes.
a cool down, and it might get a little bit treacherous.
Even a few days ago when it was so warm, I saw people outside playing soccer. A different story today, unless you're really, really brave or a little bit wild. But we are holding on to gusty conditions and really chilly temperatures, as Michelle mentioned, and it's only going to get cooler as we head throughout the day, but it's a short-lived cool down. With the winds out of the west becoming northwesterly, firing up that lake effect snow machine, still a laundry list of watches and warnings when it comes to that blowing snow and the potential of flash freezing in and around the GTA in southern Ontario. Take your time today. Still sitting at -3, feeling like -11, and that wind is going to be frigid throughout the day. The commute, though, the likelihood of that blowing snow tapers off after 5 p.m., so it's a cool but fairly clear commute into the evening. Heading into the day tomorrow, it starts to warm up, and by Monday next week, double digits. I'll take 10 degrees.
Can't wait. Thanks, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.